So in the last 5 years, I've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of energy working with high ticket info based business owners just like yourself, right? Some of the industry's top leaders that I'm not going to mention just out of their own discretion. But after having so many conversations, after helping them make money and being in their business and operating it and selling for them, and basically just being in the day to day for those businesses, after 5 years of doing that, I've noticed and I picked up on several patterns that, well, first of all, could be costing you millions of dollars. Okay, and the thing is that although there was several things that I picked up on, there's only one that's going to really drive you to the ground. That's going to make you maybe even resent the business that you've built in the first place, right? Because sometimes you get to a certain point where you throw your hands up and you don't want to do it anymore. And trust me, I've been there myself. And that is something that you want to avoid like the plague. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be basically revealing what that one thing is that you want to be avoiding like the plague, and that's keeping you from scaling to 100K, 250K, 500K, hell, even $1 million months. Okay, and my name is Oscar Sanchez. And what I do is I help rich motherfuckers like you scale and make more money. Okay. Now, by all means, right now, you're running a high ticket info based business. You're at maybe 250K a year, right? Probably a little bit more than that. Probably a little bit less. I wouldn't really consider that rich, right? But anyways, point is that right now you are stuck at a revenue ceiling. Okay, you're hitting a revenue ceiling, and you're trying to run around and figure out what's going on. Why am I at this position? Right, you're working 12 to 16-hour days only to maintain the current position that you're at right now. Okay, and I know, and like I mentioned, I know what that is like, to work yourself to the ground and not even be scaling, not even be making more money, not like just being stuck in the same position that you're in right now, right? Imagine working for so much, so long, putting in all this effort to maintain. Ask yourself, is that why you got into business? Is that why you got into entrepreneurship in the first place? Right? All you did was buy yourself a high-paying job, right? I'm pretty sure that's not why you got into business. That's not why I got into business, right? And basically what I'm going to be doing in this video is breaking down exactly what you can do in the step-by-step process to remove yourself as the bottleneck and apply leverage by building leveraged systems, right? Not just any system, but leveraged systems, so that you can actually break through and scale to eventually $1 million a month. Okay, and how do I know this to be true? Because I was working within those businesses and I saw this happen firsthand. Okay, and the first thing that you need to realize is that, again, you are the bottleneck. And until you understand that, and until you make the decision to change that, you're just going to be stuck in the same position until eventually you hit a point where you don't even want to run the business at all. Because, and like I said, I went through that, and you don't want to go down that road. Okay, so let me go ahead and hop into my computer here and tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and just stick with me here. Okay, it's going to lead into exactly how you can remove yourself from the business here in just a minute. But the reason why I can sit here and tell you this and know this to be true is because I used to work for a billionaire. Uh, One of the world's most known billionaire. He's actually one of the richest people in the world. But I'll be completely honest, I actually didn't directly work for him. I just worked at one of his companies that he built. I used to work at Amazon, right? And we all know who Jeff Bezos is. And we all know the brand that Amazon has been able to build, the product, the level of product that they've been able to build. Right? There's a reason why they're one of the world's most highly valued company. I think they have something like what was it? I actually have the number right here. Where is it? Amazon, they have a $2.46 trillion market cap. And like I mentioned, Amazon, Jeff Bezos is one of, if not the richest man in history, right? And there's probably a reason for that, right? So I used to work at Amazon, and at that time, when I was working there, I was very ashamed of working there, right? Because it's a very low-level job. You don't need any skills to work there. You're getting paid pennies on the dollar. And basically, you're working 10-hour shifts, very physically demanding job, very mentally demanding job, and you're getting paid pennies. So I was very ashamed of working there, right? I've always had aspirations of being an entrepreneur, of building something more and doing something more with my life. And so it wasn't until I actually got over that shame and opened up my mind that I was able to see exactly what was going on behind the scenes. What was Amazon doing? Why was Amazon such a valuable company? Why is this asset, this behemoth of an organization, why hasn't it made Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world? And until I took that lens, I wasn't able to see what I'm about to tell you. Okay? And what I realized is that there was a lot of systems and processes and SOPs and checklists that needed to go into my day-to-day for me to perform my job, right? Now, as an employee, I didn't think much of it, but until I changed that perspective, until I started to think like a systems thinker, like a business owner, like a real entrepreneur, like an actual billionaire, I didn't actually know what was going on. I was just a rat in the rat race, right? And so what I came to realize is that Amazon is ran on nothing but systems, okay? And from there, I realized that, holy shit. In order to build something like Amazon, or maybe not even to that level or to that degree, but in order to build something great, you need to build systems, right? And in order for you to build systems, you need to be a systems thinker, not a components thinker, right? Because a components thinker is the person that's operating the system, right? They're just the people on the ground. They're just the people in the day-to-day that are executing on all of the tasks, on all of the SOPs, that are doing the boring work over and over and over again, right? A components thinker doesn't have the leverage to zoom out and scale a company, right? And so right now, you are a components thinker. Whether you like it or not, right now you are stuck in the business. You are trying to put out fires. You're running around with your head cut off like a chicken, and you don't realize it, but you are behaving. You are acting like a components thinker, and all that's doing is leading you to a not so great place. Right? It's keeping you from your highest potential. And so you want to become a systems thinker, because systems thinkers don't need to put in 80% of effort only to get back 20% of results. Systems thinkers only need to put in 20% of effort and get back 80% of results. They're able to get so much more for so much less, right? And that is a That, simply put, that is the definition of leverage. Okay. Now you could obviously argue the fact that, hey, maybe you like working and maybe you'd get to a point where you're actually love what you're doing and you love your business so much that you want to work 12-hour days. Great. I'm that person myself and I love what I do. But until you get to that point, right? Because obviously you need to be at a point of leverage to even get to that point. But even if you are that kind of person, knowing that you can step out of the business, go on vacation. God forbid you have a vacation for once. God forbid you give yourself some space, some mental space. Just knowing that you can do that and still have the business grow on the background without you having to be there, well, that's when you've become a systems thinker, and that's when you've become someone like Jeff Bezos. Right? Like, because if you actually sit down and study, by the way, like if you actually sit down and study all of the world's most successful business people, you realize that they're all systems thinkers. None of them, I can guarantee you right now, none of them are a components thinker. They don't think like employees. They think like billionaires because they are billionaires. And all the successful ones think like systems thinkers because they understand how the game works and they understand what to do in order to get there, right? And so how do you actually become a systems thinker, right? How do you become a systems thinker and basically be like Papa Bezos right here, getting some sunscreen on by, his wife, or maybe in your case, some random chick on a yacht. It doesn't matter. The point is, how do you become a systems thinker? And the first thing you want to do is build a leveraged system. Okay? And what is a leveraged system? It is a system or process designed to perform a specific function using leverage so that you don't have to. Okay? And in this diagram, I break down what a leveraged system is. Okay, and I got this concept from a guy named Sam Evans. I've been studying him in and out for the last few years, and you might know him. He's the founder of School. He also founded consultant.com and later eventually sold it to some other twat. Just no disrespect, I respect him on greatly. I actually look up to him very much. Anyways, Sam, he's you might know him. You might not, doesn't really matter. But what a system is, what a leveraged system is basically you take an input, you run it through a process, and you get an output. It operates within an environment, okay? And it uses feedback loops to improve on itself and make sure that it's operating sufficiently. That's what a leverage system is in simple terms. Okay? And so in Amazon's example, if you actually use this concept and you think like a systems thinker, you're able to actually break down the entire business. And I went ahead and broke down this Amazon's entire business model and put it into this point of view of being a systems thinker. And by the way, just mind you, this took a ton of energy, a ton of mental energy. This took like an entire day to do. And I did this so that you don't have to, and that you can actually understand what it's going to take for you to deleverage yourself in the business and scale. Okay, because it's let's face it, it's damn near impossible for you to run 80% of the company, for you to run 80% of the operations, to be on sales calls. Maybe you're not even on sales calls, but even if you aren't on sales calls, it takes so damn much energy for you to bring in clients, right? Do all of the content, right? Script out all of the pieces of content, shoot the content. Maybe you don't edit it yourself, but you got to come up with the idea. You gotta shoot the dang thing. You gotta send it to your editing team, right? You gotta fulfill for your clients. You gotta make sure that the sales team is pumping, right? You got to make sure that they have leads. You got to make sure that those leads are good leads, right? And that can go on forever, right? But you see, the point is if you spread yourself thin across all of these different components, you can't scale. Because in order to scale, you need 100% focused on the highest leverage thing within your business. You need to be a visionary. You need to be a leader, not a components thinker. You need to be a systems thinker. Okay? So now that I've drilled that into your head, going back into this example here. So if we look at Amazon as a business, right, the main function that in this example, the main function that they are looking to fulfill is on a 1-day delivery promise. And that is why they've become the world's most valuable e-commerce companies, because of that promise and because of their ability to actually deliver on that. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to look at the macro system. So what is the overarching system that every subsystem is going to fit into? Okay. And so that's going to be this one right here, where the input is someone placing an order. So someone just places an order on the Amazon app. And then the output is someone receives their order within 1 to 2 days. And they are a happy customer because that's what they expected. They got their product. It's what they're looking for, and they love it. Okay, and this all operates within the environment of a city. And it operates within the feedback loop of the actual time to delivery and the customer feedback, right? And if we take this a step further, that's why Amazon is Amazon, and that's why they have the reviews that they have, is because they do this, they perform and execute the system to a T, and they do it very, very well. Okay, and so that's the macro system. Now, what we want to do from here is break that down into subsystems. Okay, so basically all we're doing is we're taking this macro system and we're deciding what needs to happen for this to happen. Okay, and so within this purple triangle is a process or a system. Right, this is a leverage system, this purple triangle right here. And so Amazon Logistics and Partner, this is what we're trying to figure out what needs to happen in order for someone to place an order and then get that within the next day. And basically all of these subsystems represents this main process. Okay, and what I realized when I was working at Amazon is that the level of detail and the level of diligence for every single subsystem is insane, right? Every single little thing is accounted for. There's numbers, there's tags, there's so many things that goes into this. But to make this simple, what needs to happen in order for this outcome to be achieved is, well, first of all, there needs to be inventory within a warehouse, and eventually that goes to this process of inbound flow. The inventory is stocked, blah, 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 blah. It goes through this entire process. You can read through this on your own. I don't want to bore you with the details, but eventually the customer receives their package on their front step a day later, and they are a happy customer. Okay, and so all I did here was I broke down Amazon's business model, or their fulfillment model, in terms of being a systems thinker using leveraged systems. And so why does that matter to you, and how can you use this information? Well, if you actually want to remove yourself from the business, you need to define every single step, or you need to define every single component within your business. Okay, so you have sales, you have marketing, you have content, you have lead generation, you have the landing page, you have the VSL, right? You have the sales process, you have the show up process. You have all these different moving components within the business, and what you need to do is define every single one of them and basically map it out, at least something like this. It doesn't have to be this exactly, but you have to map it out and be able to actually break it down into SOPs, into steps, procedures, tasks, and processes so that you can bring a team in, and all they have to do is follow the freaking process and get the outcome so that you can get the outcome as a business owner, which is bring in more money, bring in more cash collected, and bring in referrals and testimonials. And like I mentioned, do that, and only have to really work 4 to 6 hours a week, which is something that we can do within our business model. That's the beauty about the info space, is that there's already so much leverage within the business model that by applying even more leverage, you just get infinite levels of scale. Okay? And so how can you actually apply this within your system? Well, you want to look at all those moving components within the business that I talked about, and you want to look where most of your focus goes on a day-to-day basis. Okay, what are you spending most of your time on? And you want to look at that and build a system around that. And so, in using that example, we're going to build a client acquisition, basically a system that's going to get you more money, that's going to bring in more customers to the door, and do that in a way where you're not having to burn yourself to the ground. Okay? And so the first step here is you want to decide the primary function of the system. What is the outcome? Like I mentioned, we want to build a system to bring in more customers. And you want to ask yourself, what would the result be if this system functioned properly? Okay? And so the result is you would get a high volume of high intent appointments on the calendar, either for yourself or your one closer that you have, or the two closers, or your sales team, if you have a sales team. But you want a high volume of high intent appointments on the calendar, because that is the only way you're going to make money in your business. Okay? With a high ticket product, you need to sell people into that. And we all know they can't make the decisions on their own. Otherwise, they already would have. Okay. And yeah, the main result is cash collected, right? And what problem does this system solve? Well, it solves the problem of stagnation, of hitting a revenue plateau and having to be chained down to a business. And so what do you want to get out of this system? Again, well, in an era where trust is at an all-time low, you actually want to get the market's trust. Okay, so that's another outcome that this system is going to get as well, is you want to get the market's trust. Because what good does it do if you get someone on a call and they don't trust you, they don't know you from Adam, and from there you basically have to educate them on the entire business when you can achieve that before they get on the call. Okay? And so you want to build authority that sets you into a category of one. Okay? Obviously, you want consistency and scalability, right? The thing is, with most content systems out there, or even most client acquisition systems out there, they're not that consistent. They're not that scalable, as you know yourself. And then you want more volume, right? You want to do that at high inputs of volume. So that you can build more opportunity than what your sales team knows what to do with, because you don't want them twiddling their thumbs all day long. You want them talking to ideal prospects that trust you, that are basically already sold by the time they get on the call. And all your sales team need to do is take their damn order. Okay? That is what you want to get out of this system. So now that we have that defined, we want to create the inputs, the outputs, and the subsystems. Okay? And so we already defined what the primary function is, or what the outcome is, which is collect more cash. And so in order to do that, we want to reverse engineer this entire process. Okay, and so in terms of thinking of systems, we want to start at the endpoint. So the outcome is to collect cash. You want a new customer, right? Ideally paid in full within a very short sales cycle, and then obviously be able to ascend them into another higher ticket product, maybe cross-sell them, maybe have them as a referral, maybe to have them give you a referral, give a testimonial, all that good stuff. And so we want to start from the end point, okay? And we want to ask, what needs to happen in order to get a customer, right? And maybe you don't know, but I'll walk you through this process here, okay? And so in order for someone to become a customer, you need to pitch them, all right? You need to make them an offer. Otherwise, how can they buy something without being made an offer? It's just illogical, right? So you need to actually pitch them. And in order to pitch them, they need to be on a sales call, right? They need to actually show up to a sales call. And in order to show up to a sales call, well, they need to actually book the call in the first place, right? And so you see where I'm going with this. So you do that enough times and you get this set of subsystems where you have a referral that comes from a testimonial, that comes from a customer, and you can reverse engineer your way into building these kinds of systems, right? And so once you define the input, you can define what the input is, and then from there you can decide, okay, in order to go from pitched to customer, I need a closing process that's going to get them over the line, that's going to handle their objections and actually have them become a customer, have them give me money, right? And have them trust me enough to help me alleviate them of their problem and become a customer. In order for them to go from being a customer to becoming a testimonial, well, you need a damn good product, right? And that's the system or the subsystem here. And so what you're doing is you're using this lens of this kind of system. You're being a systems thinker, and you're using this lens to reverse engineer your way into removing yourself from the business, right? Because what you're doing right here is you're defining your business, right? You're defining what needs to happen in order for you to get a certain result. You're defining exactly what needs to happen for that to happen. And so in ideal world, the end result is you just pick someone off the streets. And so in an ideal world, the end result is just going to be you picking someone off of the streets, throwing them into the system, and have them execute on this so that you can collect more cash and get more customers, bring in more testimonials, get more referrals, and, be like Mr. Monopoly here, right? Because at the end of the day, we have the privilege of operating an info-based business that allows us to have margins like no one else is able to see. And so because of that, we're able to see Monopoly-like profits. Okay? And so to summarize everything here, the macro system in our current example, in order to gain trust and authority in the market and become a category of one to consistently collect more cash, we need this macro system, okay? And that is taking attention and turning that into money. All right, that operates within the environment of your market or your niche. And in order to take attention and turn it into money, you need a predictable and scalable client acquisition system that leverages one of these 4 forms of leverage. Okay, and there's 4 forms of leverage. And I got this from Naval Ravikant, okay? And that is people, so labor. You can have people do work. You have code, but in our specific example, it would be more of AI, right? So everyone's talking about AI, so you can leverage AI. You can leverage media, so video, kind of like I'm doing right here. Or you can leverage capital. That's, you can buy solutions, right? That's also another benefit of being in the info space, is that you can just buy solutions. You can save yourself the trouble of going through years and years of trial and error and iteration after iteration after iteration. Or you can just buy someone, or you can just buy a product where someone has already done that for you. Right? So there's 4 forms of leverage. And in most cases, you're probably going to use all 4 of these forms of leverage within a specific system. But That is the macro system there, is take attention and turn it into money using a predictable and scalable client acquisition system. And then obviously the feedback loop is the KPIs and metrics of your business, which you want to be in touch with on a regular basis. Okay. And the problem is, after being with so many business owners and working with so many business owners, and I've been guilty of this myself, but if you're not tracking your data, if you're not tracking your data to a very minute detail and you're not being diligent with that, it's very difficult to build a system and operate it in the first place, because you can't make improvements, right? You don't know what's broken, you don't know what's working. And so you can come in here and, right, you can come in here and try and fix your warm ads infrastructure, like your system to run ads on YouTube or Meta or whatever it may be. But like, that could be already working well, right? So unless you have insight into your feedback loops and your metrics, you're just going to be throwing money against the wall and wasting your time. Okay? And so that is how you can define the entire systems from a bird's eye view. And all you want to do from there is hire people to man these systems for you and operate them for you. Okay? And like I mentioned, you can either hire people, you can build AI around it. You can build, where you're going to be using media within those systems anyways, like to train the people and all that good stuff. And you're probably going to be spending money for all that because it's not cheap, right? Good A-team level, A-talent. I can't speak. A-level talent. So like A-team players, they cost money, right? And so what you want to do once you have all of this mapped out, you have it all defined, and you know every single step that needs to happen in order for you to take attention and turn that into money, then you just build those SOPs around it, and you pick people off the streets and you throw them into the system, and boom, they go through all these processes, they go through all the systems, and you end up getting referrals. You end up making more money. You actually end up scaling, maybe even getting to, I don't know, $1 million a month, if God permits, right? You get the mental space and the clarity to actually be a leader within your business and not be stuck in the day-to-day, right? Trying to put out fires, but you actually get to sit back and build things like this because you're seeing the overall picture and you're able to scale the company in doing that, right? Maybe even you can step, God forbid, you step out of the business and have an empty calendar for once and everything doesn't go to fucking shit. God forbid that happens. Please excuse my French. I'll try to curse less because I know the algorithm. Anyways. But if you guys found that valuable, let me know. Let me know in the comments what you found valuable about that. Or honestly, just rip me to shreds in the comments. Tell me how handsome I am, but how dumb this whole idea is. I'll take that. Or just tell me how not handsome I am if you want to lie to yourself. But if you guys enjoyed that, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.